Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 5, Text 8, Translation and Commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Pungsaha Striyaha Mithuni Bhavam Etam Tayoho Mithaha Hridaya Granthim Ahuhu Ataha Griha Kshetra Sutta Apta Vitaihi Janasya Mohaha Ayam Aham Mama Iti Pungsastriya Mithuni Bhavametam Tayor Mitho Hridaya Granthim Ahuhu Ato Griha Kshetra Sutapta Vittair Janasya Moho Yamaham Mameti Pungsa Striya Mithuni Bhavametam Tayor Mitho Hridaya Granthimahu Ato Griha Kshetra Sutapta Vittair Janasya Moho Yamaham Mameti. Translation. The attraction between male and female is the basic principle of material existence. On the basis of this misconception, which ties together the hearts of the male and female, one becomes attracted to his body, home, property, children, relatives, and wealth. In this way, one increases life's illusions and thinks in terms of I and mine. Purport. Sex serves as the natural attraction between man and woman, and when they are married, their relationship becomes more involved. Due to the entangling relationship between man and woman, there is a sense of illusion whereby one thinks, this man is my husband, or this woman is my wife. This is called Hridaya Granthi, the hard knot in the heart. This knot is very difficult to undo, even though a man and woman separate either for the principles of Varnashram or simply to get a divorce. In any case, the man always thinks of the woman and the woman always thinks of the man. Thus a person becomes materially attached to family, property and children. Although all of these are temporary, the possessor unfortunately identifies with the property and wealth. Sometimes even after renunciation, one becomes attached to a temple or to the few things that constitute the property of a sannyasi, but such attachment is not as strong as family attachment. The attachment to the family is the strongest illusion. In the Satya Sanghita it is stated, Brahmadya Yagyavalkyadya Muchante Stri Sahayanaha Bodhyante Kichanai Teshang Visheshang Chavido Viduhu. Sometimes it is found among exalted personalities like Lord Brahma that the wife and children are not a cause of bondage. On the contrary, the wife actually helps further spiritual life and liberation. Nevertheless, most people are bound by the knots of the marital relationship and consequently they forget their relationship with Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam propounds the highest truth, which is reality distinguished from illusion for the welfare of all. This is true. An unexpected truth for those who claim to be searching for the truth. There are a certain class of people who pretentiously claim to be searching for the truth, but if we tell them that the truth is that we're entangled in this material world due to sexual attraction, they will not be very enthusiastic to accept that as truth. Or there may be devotees who like to hear about the truth of Radha and Krishna's intimate dealings, but they are not very enthusiastic to hear about that which actually disqualifies them from entering into such topics. The hard knot on the heart, illusion that arises in thinking in terms of I, me, and mine. How does this arise? Well, it arises from identification, sense of identification with the body, but that becomes exacerbated by considering that this person is my spouse, this is our property, this is ours. It might seem to be a step away from self-centeredness to share one's identity with others. Not just myself, but my spouse, my relatives, my community, my countrymen, or country people, I guess they say nowadays. But actually this is extended selfishness. Srila Prabhupada used this term, extended selfishness. Because we find pleasure in others, then we identify with others. For instance, if someone is very rich, what's the value of being very rich unless they can show off their wealth to others? If you're simply very rich and you sit at home all day being rich. There was one, who is that? Howard Hughes? He was a recluse. He was very rich and completely miserable. He was cut himself off from the rest of the world. Not that he was spiritually inclined, but he just didn't, what was the reason? He didn't want to get any germs. He thought he'd die from germs, so he cut himself off from other people so he wouldn't get any germs. And he died anyway, of course. Yeah, that's clear. Wealth doesn't bring happiness. John Lennon, maybe you've heard of him. He's like all famous people, who didn't really contribute anything of any lasting value. He was famous. Now he's gradually becoming less famous. The present generation, I think they don't care much about him. Anyway, he was fabulously wealthy and clearly very unhappy. He wasn't a happy person. For all his talk of peace and love, which came to an abrupt end when someone peacefully and without much love shot him dead. It happens to all the people who speak about peace and love. Mahatma Gandhi, Martin Luther King, John Lennon, which just goes to show that you can preach it as much as you like, but the nature of this world is full of envy. Not everyone who speaks about peace and love, but there's some of the most prominent people who have spoken about that. So these are truths. Srimad Bhagavatam gives the truth. I'll say another truth which is very much relevant to those present here who don't have a full set of Srila Prabhupada's books in their home. if for any reason you don't have a full set of Srila Prabhupada's books in your home for your own personal use, not just for distribution. To distribute books is good, but the first thing is you should read them yourself. So if you don't have the full set of Srila Prabhupada's books in your home, then you should have. Take it as an instruction, not as advice. If you're so eager to come here, that's very nice, but I presume, of course I'm talking about grihastas, those who live in the brahmachari ashram. They should have all of Srila Prabhupada's books available to them in the ashram. So have these books and read these books, and then you will come to see the world differently, because most people see through the eyes of their illusion. Their vision is clouded. Kalo nashta drisha. They're called persons whose vision is spoiled by Kali Yuga. And the solution for that is Krishna swadhamo bhagate dharma jnana dibi saha. Kalo nashta drisha esham puranako dhunoditaha. Krishna left this world at the end of the previous yuga. He is the very personification of and the reservoir of all religious principles and knowledge. So he left, they left with him, but he remained in the world with all desirable, elevating principles in the form of Srimad Bhagavatam. And people who have lost their vision due to the dense darkness of Kali Yuga shall get light from this Bhagavad Purana. But you have to switch the light on, which means you have to have the books and read the books. Even to have the books is good, but you have to read them also. Even though these truths might seem very painful, if we say this, many people, they'll feel pain in their heart. Oh, what painful topics. Let's skip through this and get right through to the 10th canto and listen to Krishna Leela. But Krishna says similar things in the 10th canto also. You can't escape. We find in the 10th canto Krishna personally talking to the sages at Kurukshetra, not to Arjuna. That came Krishna speaking to Arjuna at Kurukshetra came later. Speaking to the sages, glorifying the sages. He's glorifying the sages. He said to them, "Yes, yatma buddhi." How's that? How does that verse begin? That's it. Yes, yatma buddhi kurna pedritatuke swadhi kalatrardeshu bhoma idjadihi yatirtha buddhi salalena karhi jijjaneshva vigyeshu sa eva go kara. Glorifying the sages, he said that persons who identify this bag, which is called, they consider that to be the body, it's a bag full of mucus, bile and air. They consider that to be themselves. Who consider that their wife and their home, their land of birth are glorious, worshipable. Janani janma bhumischa swargameva gariyasi. My land, my country, my mother, these are better than the heavenly planets. Even the worm in stool may think like that. My glorious worm in stool. Stick a flag in it. Stick a flag. Our country. All the worms on this piece of stool. We declare our independence. We have made our own country. It's the same attitude. The worm in stool, if you take away, indignantly he'll crawl back. So, so Krishna is describing persons who take the visit to a holy place to simply go and bathe there. Finished. my job is done. But they don't associate, the implication is they don't associate with saintly persons who are there. So such persons are no better than go kara. Go means a cow and kara means an ass. So I may say, well, the cow is very glorified. Yeah, but not very intelligent. Not highly intelligent being. Or this Gokara can be taken to mean that can also be taken to mean just like a beast of burden. The bull is also used as they've no higher intelligence but to eat, sleep, mate and defend. So these are harsh truths. It seems harsh. But it's liberating truth, because we're bound up, hridaya granthi, we're bound up in this material world. Srila Prabhupada quotes that in Bhagavad Gita purport, Maithunagara. We're tied up in this material world by the chains of sexual attraction. How can we get free? First of all, we have to know how we're bound. It doesn't seem like we're bound up. At least in America, it's a free country. You can buy a ticket and travel. Of course, you have to get the money, but then you have freedom to work. You can go here and there. There's a lot of freedom. America is founded on the principle of freedom. So how are we tied up? We're tied up in the cycle of birth and death. We are tied up in the cycle of birth and death due to sensual attraction, among which the most binding is sexual attraction, the basic principle of material existence, which all arises from envy of Krishna. People talk of love and they think that love means sexual attraction. But that's not love. That is the opposite of love. Real love means love for Krishna. So these are very, may seem to be very harsh truths. But actually it's not harsh. If we can understand and accept this, then we can become open to love of Krishna. So, although it may seem harsh, that's because we are attached to non-reality. We're attached to untruth, and we take it to be truth. There's what is called in psychology the Stockholm Syndrome. You know about that? Where someone may be captured by some people who do not have their best interests in heart. They capture them as what's that called? For hostages, for some ransom or to get some political leverage or something like this. And they say, okay, you give us $20 million, otherwise we're going to kill these hostages. Or you release our compatriots who are in your prison for being terrorists or whatever. Otherwise we're going to kill these people. And sometimes the hostages, they try to show themselves to be sympathetic to the captors, so that the captors will treat them nicely. And it becomes out of fear. This is something like Peshashkrita. This is described several times. It's a common example given in the throughout the Shastra, in Srimad Bhagavatam and elsewhere, how the worm who is captured by a bigger worm, by meditating in fear on that worm, takes the form of that worm. It has a metamorphosis. So in the same way, someone who had no sympathy for such people who captured them previously, their consciousness changes, and they start to think. They want to make a good show of being sympathizing with their captors, and so they say, yes, your cause is right. We agree with you. And then, even after they're released, they continue. They're so afraid that their captors are going to torture them and kill them. They become so afraid they can't come to grips with the fact that they're now freed. They're not in any danger from the captors. So they continue to think. They continue to talk like that. Yes, actually their cause is very good. So in the same way, we are captured by Maya. Willingly captured by Maya. And we think that which is bad for us is good for us. This is the highest insanity, isn't it? If something which is detrimental to us, we think is good for us. You may say, well, how could anyone think like that? Go in the shop and see the cigarette packets, what's written on them. It's clearly said. I was just I was stuck in Amsterdam airport for several hours waiting for a Delta flight. And I went to buy some water in a store. I saw on the cigarette packets, they have a variety of messages. The same brand has a variety of messages. I guess the idea, of course, they don't do it willingly, but by law they're supposed to. And they don't just have one message, but they have the same brand, they have different messages on different packets. I guess the idea is that if it's different, the people might actually look at it. And one of them, it says smoking kills, smoking causes skin aging. The Director General of Health or whatever has ascertained that smoking can cause serious damage to your health and of the persons around you. All different messages. And still people buy it, otherwise it wouldn't be in the shop. So they know it's bad for them, but still they buy it. There's an example of people doing something which, even if they identify with the body, something which is very bad for the body, they do it anyway. Why? Because they feel some immediate pleasure when they when they smoke, even though it's causing them so much damage in other ways. So, one truth is that in this material world we're practically insane. And that's also stated in this section of Lord Rishabhadev's teachings. Nunang pramata kurute vikarma yadindriya pritiya aprinoti na sadhu manye yata atmano yamma sanapi kleshada asadeha. He says that people are crazy. Really, that's from Nunam. Really, they're crazy. Because they perform sinful activities which cause them to get born again and again and again, to suffer again and again and again. This is madness. It should be that people who accept reincarnation as to be real, which means most Hindus and Buddhists and Jains and Sikhs, they should think, oh, this is very serious. I'm going to get born again and again. I got to do something I got to get out of this. But they don't care. They just go on. Yeah, well, I'll offer some incense to whoever's on the altar, and or I went for a yatirtha buddhi salile. I already went for a bath in the Ganga, so that washed off lifetimes of sin. So, nothing to be worried about. They're so foolish. People are foolish. This is true. People are very, very foolish. So, why such harsh words? Why not say it gently? Why is Vyasadeva so strong and so harsh? It hurts. It hurts. It seems like it's hurting us, but it's not hurting us. It's hurting our ego. We are not this ego. So when we realize I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not this false ego, then when these statements come, then it cuts the ego. Chidyante sarva sangsha, vidyate hridaya grantis, chidyante sarva sangsha. It's cutting, but it's not cutting. Cutting is painful, right? Cutting, Anyone who's a cook, they know about cutting. They'll get little cuts here and there. Or even more severe. I once had an abscess lacerated in Delhi without any anesthetic. And it was incredibly painful. It was good for me because when I was walking back, almost passing out, I thought, okay, I'm going to do whatever I've got to do not to get born, because if I get born again, I'm going to have to suffer this again and again and again. So it was good in one sense. Lucky I don't know, maybe I did get hepatitis C or something at the same time. I never checked for that. Never know. Because the guy just picked up this, he wasn't even a doctor. Anyway, I won't go on about this. Government hospital in 1977 in Delhi, Lajpat Nagar. So it hurts. But when we know that I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not this false ego, it doesn't hurt. And this can be practically applied also. Because another time I went to a dentist and I had some drilling work and he didn't put any anesthetic. I don't know why. It was incredibly painful. But then I just thought, I'm not the body. And it really helped. Really, it really helped. I'm not the body and it's going to be over soon. I don't know why he didn't put any anesthetic, but anyway, he didn't. There may be some reason. Sometimes you can't put anesthetic for some medical reason. Do we have any doctors here? They know. They should know. In some cases you can't put it. So yeah, it hurts. But when you know I'm not the body, I'm not the mind, I'm not this false ego, then it doesn't hurt. But people don't know. Lokasya janata. People don't know. Anartho pashamang sakshat bhakti yoga madhoksaje. Lokasya janata vidvans chakre satvata sanghita. People don't know that all these anarthas begin with identifying with the body, taking that which is untrue to be true. They don't know that this can immediately be dissipated by bhakti yoga, by performing devotional service to Krishna. Even if they recognize that this material existence is an anartha, they may take to some very, very difficult process to get free from it. In this verse is mentioned bhakti yoga. But people they may take to ashtanga yoga to try to get free from all from distress. Distress is in the mind. So yoga is meant for yoga chitta vritti nirodha. Just close down the mind. Then you won't have any distress. But what a difficult process to do so. What a very difficult process. And at the end there's no bliss. There's just shut down, that's all. And it's supposed to be the bliss of being just conscious. Only consciousness, without any thoughts. It's not. What's the point? Well, the point is because consciousness of this material world is simply suffering. So just stop the suffering. They don't have any positive program. Just stop the suffering. But they don't know. Lokasya ajanataha. Those who don't know. They don't know. So, Vidvang, Vyasadeva, he has compiled the Srimad Bhagavatam to give knowledge of that. This is the truth book. There used to be a magazine, very glossy, attractive, well-prepared magazine called The Plain Truth. You must remember that, Harivilas Prabhu. That magazine. What happened to that? I didn't see it around for some time. They must have lost their sponsorship. Which Christian group was it? Yeah. It was a very Anyone else remember seeing that? I used to see it in my childhood, and then I joined the Hare Krishna movement and went off to India, so I don't know what happened to it after that. Very attractively presented, and showing many of the problems in the material world in a very convincing way, and then the solution is the Bible. In India, a lot of our preaching in the colleges goes like that also, that we show all the problem. Armstrong. You just looked it up on the internet. The Church of God. Worldwide Church of God. Anyway, like everything in this world, it has a beginning and an end. So what was I saying? Yeah, in India, a lot of the preaching to students is the devotees go in and they point out, you see, science, there's so many problems, they're misleading you, and that's usually enough to say, oh, really? And then you can add on how the society, there's so many problems in society, and then they say, Bhagavad Gita. And people say, yes, Bhagavad Gita. But I heard that devotees who are doing this, they went to Russia and tried to do the same thing. And the students, they didn't accept so easily, but they also, oh yeah, science, so many bogus things. And then they came up Bhagavad Gita and said, why Bhagavad Gita? What's the connection? Okay, so you've shown that there are so many problems and cheating in science, but then what's the logical step between that and Bhagavad Gita? They didn't make the connection in their mind. Though Indians, due to underlying faith in Bhagavad Gita, they're ready to accept that. So people in this part of the world, they may have an underlying faith in the Bible. And therefore they may say, oh, so many things wrong in the world, therefore we should take to the Bible. The plain truth, they call that. So truth, we accept from Srimad Bhagavatam. Is that sectarianism? You have your Bible, we have our Srimad Bhagavatam. No, if we examine dispassionately, then we'll find that there is no knowledge equivalent to that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the science of God, Bhagavad Tattva Vijnanam. There's no scripture which gives knowledge of God to the extent that Srimad Bhagavatam does. As Srila Prabhupada put it, we can know who is God, actually who is God. There are some religious processes which say that you can't know God. He's too great, you can't know, which is true in one sense. But as George Harrison wrote in his introduction to the Krishna book, if there's a God, I want to know who He is. I want to see Him and talk to Him. So Srimad Bhagavatam presents the highest knowledge of God, who He is, who His Father is. Wait a minute. How can God have a father? Well, it explains how God can have a father. That's a shock, isn't it? God's our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Well, how can He have a father? He's the Father of everything. He says in Bhagavad Gita, Pita aham asya jagata, I'm the Father of the whole universe. Aham bija pradapita, I'm the seed-giving Father. But He has a Father also. Oh, this is really some kind of understanding which is beyond what we would expect. If we're going to find out God, don't expect that it's just going to be something that we can work out by our own mental speculation. Okay, God should be like this. The dam collapsed and 20,000 people died. Well, God's good, so He wouldn't have allowed it, therefore there's no God. This kind of theorizing goes on. But this kind of theorizing goes on by people who do not know the science of God. So, pungsastriya mitani bhavameta. Why is it condemned so much? Because the attraction between male and female is very nice. People come together and they love each other What's wrong? What's wrong with that? What's wrong is that people are wasting their valuable human life pursuing that which is not in their real self-interest. That's the worst thing that's wrong with it. The fact that we get entangled and we take birth after birth, we commit sinful activities, but the worst thing is it causes us to forget Krishna. The human form of life is meant for developing love of Krishna. So in the material world, the greatest gift of God is the human form of life, durlabha manava janama satsanga, and to get association of devotees. But people who are very unfortunate, they don't take advantage of that. And especially in this Kali Yuga, the people who seem to be normal and nice, and in many ways may be normal and nice, for lack of knowledge or lack of guidance, they're living in such a way that every day of their life they produce enough karma to suffer horribly in the lower species, in hellish circumstances, for many, many births, and they just take it to be normal. They don't know. So these are such graphic truths, or what's the word? Powerful truths. I'm just not getting the right word. These are gripping truths, or something. They should wake us up. Profound truth. Yeah, it's. Of course, we've all heard these things before, and that's maybe why we're not gasping, apart from Nihal, and making sound. Really? We should be enlivened or gripped by this fact that we are so fortunate to have this knowledge by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, but others don't. They're spoiling their life. Even if we try to tell them, it's very difficult to get them to hear, because they have this animalistic consciousness of wanting to enjoy the senses. Only Krishna consciousness can save them. Even if they're religious, it's a lot better to be religious and believe in God, even if one is ignorant of the laws of karma and performs various sinful activities. It's still better. But really, Krishna consciousness is the whole package. Full knowledge of who is God, full knowledge of how to approach Him, what to do, what not to do. Of course, everyone wants to say, my way is the best. Although another common line nowadays, not only nowadays, but particularly prominent at the present time, is, everyone will all live together. Everyone choose their own truth. And you, joto mot toto pot, whichever path you like, whatever opinion you have, it's all the same. But we say that no, take to Krishna consciousness. This is the highest truth. It might appear to uninformed people that Srila Prabhupada was actually very arrogant, because he would always say that Krishna consciousness is topmost. But that isn't arrogance. That is compassion. To try to give to people what they really need instead of what they think they need, which is killing them. Literally. Killing them. They don't even know who they are. They're killing their own spiritual prospects. All this, everything's okay, everything's nice. There's so many yogis and swamis who have come to the West and profess some mumbo jumbo. We are all the universe. I saw some debate. It wasn't really a debate because they really didn't touch bases at all between Deepak Chopra and Richard Dawkins. And Richard Dawkins couldn't make head or tail out of what he was saying, because actually he was talking something which was totally irrational. He said that we are all the universe looking outside at ourselves. That was one of the lines I remember. What does that mean? It's just some imagination, but people like it. Oh, I am the universe. In the meantime, the universe squashes them. Just like the Monty Python boot comes and, I don't know if any of it, going back to the 1970s, comes and just, you're walking along, big boot comes and squashes you. So it's also truth that most of the people who talk about the truth are cheaters and liars and rascals, especially those coming from India. Don't like to hear that, being Indian? Well, it's true. If we know what is the truth, Krishna is the truth, Srimad Bhagavatam is the truth, then we know that people who profess to be presenting the truth but are not presenting the truth, they are cheating. We may not always say this to people directly. We may do also. Some years ago, some people came to see me, nice pious family, and so I asked them, so what are you doing for your spiritual life? And they told us, we are followers of Asharam Bapa. I told them, he's a complete cheater and a rascal. He's cheating you. He's not giving the highest truth. They were still polite, but they left very quickly after that. Some years later, they came back to the devotees' place where I was staying and said, oh, I remember a few years ago your Swami said that. And then Asharam Bapa became exposed as so many bad things about him. So they remembered that. At the time, they were unhappy. But eventually it came out how he was behaving on a moral level lower than even the ordinary person, taking advantage of people thinking him to be divine. So the truth may be hard to take, but somehow we have to give it to them. The best way, Srila Prabhupada said, is to distribute his books. If people can take these books, especially there's great opportunity, I can just imagine, in this area, where there are so many Indian people who are well educated and who will take Srimad Bhagavatam sets. If we approach them, many of them will take Bhagavatam sets. In India itself and in Sri Lanka, there are certain disciples of mine who, they go out on book distribution and they have sets of Bhagavatam. They find someone who's a little interested, immediately bring out the Bhagavatam set. And they just going door to door, shop to shop, office to office. Many of them do 3-4 Bhagavatam sets in a day, just without any introduction or anything. Just they find people a little interested, preach to them, and they can take whole sets. Actually, Srila Prabhupada wanted set distribution here in America also. He said that every respectable gentleman in America should have a full set of my books. And life membership also, it was attempted. We generally think life membership is a program for Indians, but Srila Prabhupada also encouraged that Americans could also be encouraged to become life members. So if people get these books and read these books, we may think, oh, they're stuck in some demigod worship or this and that. Give them the books and then follow them up. Follow them up. Are you reading the books? Yes. Come to our meeting. We'll discuss them more. Give them the truth. Srila Prabhupada worked so hard to translate these books, to present these books. It was hard. He himself said it was hard work. He said, I have to concentrate to every word, how to present it for the common man. So Srila Prabhupada, he wanted his disciples to distribute these books. Of course, there are other. We can distribute the knowledge in these books by speaking, but here especially, there's so much opportunity for distributing full sets of Srila Prabhupada's books. Mostly people will take Bhagavatam. They're not at first. Gita and Bhagavatam. Another thing, they have money also. Another thing they can do is to sponsor books for their home area in India. That can be arranged. Yeah, then they can. We do this a lot in the in United Arab Emirates, which means Dubai is most famous, and in other Persian Gulf countries, because it's difficult to get many books in there. But we tell the people that, okay, so you can sponsor 100 Bhagavad Gitas for your village, or for the prisons. Yes, for the prisons, for libraries, for schools, like this. Or the school you went to, we can give books like that. So, good opportunity. Anyway, it's time now. Hare Krishna.